Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time coming across my video, my name is Mercy Ogechi. I make videos on sewing tutorials, so please like, share and comment. For my returning subscribers, thank you so much. So for today we are going to be learning how to make a funnel corset. Yes, how to cut and sew a funnel corset. First is to mark the shoulder line. So from the shoulder line, I marked my vertical measurements, which are my shoulder to nipple point, my shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waist, and also shoulder to the hip line. I marked the same measurements on the other side of the paper, then I connected with a straight ruler to form a horizontal line. On the shoulder line, I marked my shoulder measurement divided by 2. My shoulder measurement is 16, divided by 2 is 8. So I marked 8 on the shoulder line. Then I also marked my neckline of 3 by 3. So when I was done, I used my curved ruler to connect the neckline. On the shoulder measurement, I came down by 1.5 inches for my shoulder slope. Next is to mark your chest line, and to determine where to mark the chest line, you have to divide your bust circumference by 6. Whatever you have, you add 1.5 to it. My bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 gives me 8. So from the shoulder slope, I marked 8. Then I measured what was remaining from that point where I marked 8 to my bust point. I had 1.5 inches. So I marked the 1.5 inches across the paper in order to have a straight line. And that is my chest line. Then I went ahead to label my bust point, my under bust, my waist, and my hip line. To draw the armhole, I marked a straight line from the shoulder measurement to the chest line, or you can bring down whatever you have on the shoulder measurement down to the chest line and connect with a straight line. Then you determine the midpoint. From the midpoint, you come in by 0.5 inch. Then on the chest line, you are going to measure your bust circumference divided by 4. Whatever you have, you mark it on the chest line. Then you use a curved ruler to connect the points as you see me doing in the video. Next is to mark your nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. My nipple to nipple measurement is 8, divided by 2 will give me 4. So I marked 4 from the bust point to the hip line. So you have to measure your own to know what your nipple to nipple measurement is. So whatever you have, you will mark it from the bust point to the hip line and then connect with a straight line. After that, I went ahead to mark my dart intake of 2 inches. On the side, I marked 1.5 inches. Then towards the center front, I marked 0.5 inch. If you want it straight, you can just bring down the same measurement to the hip line and connect with a straight line. But me, I wanted mine to be slanty. So what I did was, on the hip line, I came in by 1.5. I measured what I have as a dart on the under bust and replaced it. Then I connected it in a slanty form, so I won't be using the initial dart line. I measured what was remaining on the shoulder from the neckline to the armhole. Then I marked the midpoint, so I connected it to meet the dart line on the bust point. Then I used my curve ruler to make a slight curve from the under bust to the bust point. I also did the same thing on the other side as well. Next is to mark the body measurement. So on the bust point, I divided my bust circumference by 4 and marked the answer. On the waistline, I divided my waist circumference by 4 and also mark the answer. Also on the hip line, I divided my hip circumference by 4 and marked the answer. Then I measured and replaced the dart. Now note, while replacing the dart, I marked 1.5 inches instead of 2 inches. Initially I marked a dart intake of 2 inches, but while replacing it after my body measurement, I marked 1.5, leaving half inch behind. Reason is because I want a very snatched corset. So when I was done with the body measurements and the dart replacement, I used my ruler to connect the marks. On the waistline, I came in by half an inch. You remember I said I wanted a very snatched corset. So I came in by half an inch. Then I used the straight ruler to connect towards the bust, towards the under bust. Then I blend in. I used the curved side to blend in towards the hip line. Still on the waistline, I measured what was remaining from the dart leg to the side. I divided it by 2 to get the midpoint. Then I used my straight ruler to connect it in a slanty form. So after that, I marked another dart intake of 0.25. Then I connected with my straight ruler again. I'm reducing my waist circumference by 5 inches. My waist circumference is 30 inches minus 5, so I'll be having 25 inches at the end of the day. So for the front pattern, I'll be reducing it by 3 inches, and for the back, I'll be reducing it by 2 inches. You remember I left half an inch while I was replacing the dart. So half an inch on one side and another half an inch on the other side. You're going to have 1 inch for left hand side of the body, the same thing on the right hand side of the body. Also for the 0.25 dart intake, if you hold 0.25 on one side, 0.25 on another side, you're going to have half an inch. So half an inch for one side of the body and half an inch for the other side of the body, you're going to have 1 inch. So 1 inch plus the other 2 inches, making it a total of 3 inches. You need to determine how deep you want your corset to be. So I'm using 3 inches, which is the standard. From the chest line, I mark 3 inches upwards. Then I connect with a straight ruler. On that same line, I marked a dart of 0.75 on the 2 sides of the line for the overbust tightening. Then I used the straight ruler to connect it to the bust point. You're going to replace the darts on the armhole. You're going to replace one of the 0.75. You're going to mark it on the armhole so as not to shorten the armhole measurement. Maybe after sewing, the boobs will be popping out and stuff like that. So you're going to replace it, then use your curve ruler to connect the new armhole. Next thing is to mark your bust dart, and to determine the bust dart, you have to know the difference between your front half length and your back half length. So you minus your front half length from your back half length. Whatever you have will be your bust dart. Mine is 1.5. My front half length is 17 inches, while my back half length is 15.5. So 17 inches minus 15.5 will give me 1.5. So from the bust point line, I came down by 1.5 inches. Then I used my straight ruler to connect it to meet the bust point. To close the dart, you're going to cut open the mid-shoulder line to the bust point, and also you're going to cut open the bust point line. So the next thing is to differentiate between the corset and the bustier. So on the chest line, I came up by 1 inch. Then I used a very nice curve to connect from that 1 inch to the overbust tightening, overbust darts, and also to the armhole. I realized that one side of the dart was shorter, so I came up by half an inch and extended the dart. Then I connected from that 1 inch with my curve ruler to meet the new half inch. And as you can see, they are on the same line now. You can either leave it this way or do any design you want on the neckline, either a scallop or whatever design you like. But for me, I chose to do a scallop neckline. You have to use your pencil to draw out the design you want first before using your marker to make it more visible. So for the funnel part, you need to come down on the bust point by 1/2 inch. Then you draw something like a sweetheart neckline. You can use your free hand or you use your curve ruler, whichever one you feel comfortable to use. Next is to close the bust dart. Then use a pin or a paper tape to hold it down. And after that, you're going to notice a shortage by the side of the armhole. So you're going to use your ruler to blend in. Next thing I did was to measure the length of the corset. So from the waist, I came down by 5 inches. I marked across the paper, then used my straight ruler to connect. Next thing you're going to do is to get a fresh plain pattern paper and place it under your working pattern paper. Then you're going to use your tracing wheel to trace out the bustier, that is from your neckline to your under bust. You will also need to use a paper tape or a pin to secure it before tracing out. And also make sure that you're tracing on the bustier part and not the funnel part. Just watch this video very well and see how I'm tracing out. When I was done tracing out, I used my pencil to bring out all the lines, then before using my marker to highlight them. And after that, I went ahead to cut it out. So this is what I have for the bustier after tracing out and cutting out. So let's go back to the funnel part. Before cutting the funnel part, I made sure to label them, the center front, the middle front, and the side front. So after labeling them, I now went ahead to cut it out. Also note that I did not start cutting from my hip line anymore because it's no longer the corset length. I started cutting from that 5 inches I went down from the waistline. You have to be careful and pay attention while cutting this part so you don't mistake the bustier part as the funnel part. So you have to concentrate. So now I'm done with the front pattern. I've cut out the bustier part and the funnel part. I also labeled the bustier, the center front and the side front. So now let's move over to the back pattern. So for the back, I've marked out the necessary lines, the shoulder to the chest line, the bust point, the waist and the hip. I've also marked the armhole curve and the necklines as well. So for the lacing at the back, on the chest line I marked 1.5 inches, on the waistline I marked 1 inch, and on the hip line I mark 1/2 inch because I want it to be in a slanty form. If I wanted it to be straight, I can just mark 1.5 and connect it straight to the hip line, but I want it in a slanty form. After that, you're going to go ahead and insert your body measurements. That is your bust divided by 4, your waist divided by 4, and also your hip divided by 4. Then after putting the measurements, you connect it with your ruler just like we did on the front pattern. On the center back from the slanty line, we are going to mark 1.5 inches or 2 inches for the placket. A placket is where we will fix the eyelets that we're going to use and lace our corset. So you're going to mark 1.5 inches or 2 inches from the chest line to the hip line, but me, I used 1.5 inches. Just like we did on the front pattern, we are going to come in by 1/2 inch on the waistline, then we are going to use our ruler to blend it in like so. Then we are going to measure what is remaining on the waistline get the midpoint and make a straight line with your ruler to hit the chest line and the hip line. Still on the waistline, you're going to mark that intake of 1/2 inch on the both sides of the new line. Then from the waist, you measure 6 inches downwards. Also, measure from the waist 6 inches upwards. Then you're going to connect the darts like so. So if you still have more space and wish to add more style lines, you can go ahead and do that, but there's no space for me to add more style lines, so I'm just leaving it this way. Next is to mark your back neckline. You can either make a curve, a sweetheart, however you want it to be, or you can just leave it straight, but me, I chose to leave it straight. I labeled the placket so I don't mistake it for the center front. Then I came down from the waistline by 5 inches for the corset length. I brought back my side front to match with the side back to make sure they are having the same shape, and yes, they have the same shape. So after that, I labeled the center back and the side back. Then I went ahead to cut out. And this is what I have for the back. I have the placket, the center back, and the side back. So here I've used the pattern to cut out the fabric. Then I added 1/2 inch round and also 1 inch sewing allowance on the sides. We've come to the end of this video, so stay tuned for the part 2, which is the sewing part. And also don't forget to give me a thumbs up, comment, and share. See you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.